Hi, I'm John. This is my show, An American Scheme, where I'm proving that Diana Ross is Michael Jackson's actual mother. So this is a tricky little video. This is the ones that I have these videos in my mind, and I'm like, okay, I need to try and put that video together one day, because what will happen is I'll start to try and make an attempt to build a video like this, and then what will happen is, like, I don't know how busy I'm going to be in my actual day, you know, what's going on, and so I'll start, like, because what happens is I have to search. I know about all this information. I've watched all these videos. I've seen all these things, right? It's one of those things that's like, okay, I know I've seen this stuff out there, and I have an idea where it's at, and then I'll go and I'll make an attempt to try and find it. Because actually I tried to make this video about a week ago or 2 weeks ago or whatever, and then when I went to the interview to find this piece here that I was looking for, I couldn't find it. So then that kind of, okay, I brushed it off, and then so I made an attempt today, and then I pulled this one up, and I was like, okay, and then it came on pretty quick too, the piece I was looking for. So I was like, oh, okay, and then I was like, okay, now everything else I think I can find it pretty good, except the next part where I was like, the Berry Gordy thing, that was a tricky one too. So let me get into this. And so what I'm going to show you here is that we're going to talk about Michael Jackson's name, the way it developed, like, because how they say it developed in the Jacksons An American Dream movie. Plus, that is the story of what I understand of what Katherine tells about how Michael's name was came about, was that her mother actually named Michael. You know, so that's supposed to be an official story. So I'll show you that in An American Dream, how that develops. And then I'm going to show you here that Joe Jackson. See, Joe Jackson earlier, first he was a boxer when he was young. He was trying to be a professional boxer, and then he tried to be a professional musician, and then he married Katherine and started having all the children and working at the steel mill, okay? So then we know the story that Michael's one of the younger kids, right? He's not one of the first kids. So by the time that Michael's born, Joseph has been working at the steel mill for a number of years, right? And he's got already a bunch of kids already. Okay, he hasn't built the Jackson 5. They're not building in motion to put that in motion. It's not really until the Michael, and this is what I'm trying to show you, that the Joseph Jackson and the whole development of the Jackson 5 all develops around the giving of Michael, because it's Berry Gordy and Joseph Jackson that had developed a friendship when they were young in boxing. And then they started to pursue interest in music. And this is one thing that I've shown a bunch. I'm not going to show you all this information and all the documents and evidence and stuff. But what I've said is, what I'm saying is the way my story is going. I'm saying that Joe Jackson and Berry Gordy developed a friendship when they were young through boxing. And then they ran into each other again through the music. And they became friends somehow when they were much younger. This is like this would be like 1950, somewhere in the late 40s, somewhere like that, you know? That's what I'm saying, that this is when this is taking place. So this is when they're young, when they're doing boxing. This is much before Michael's born in 1958, you know? So we're much different. So what happens is Joseph gives up the boxing career, right? He gives up the music career. This is the story, the all actual documented history. Joseph goes to work at the steel mill. And but then there's a point where he stops working at the steel mill, and then next thing you know, they're getting the band. So there's all this stuff. So that's what I'm going to show you here, and I'm going to show you how Berry Gordy and Joseph Jackson interest in boxing and music, that there's a connection there, and that's how Michael was given to the Jacksons, through that connection. And I'm going to show you how that through a few things here right there. I'm going to show you that connection is a really important connection. Okay, so here, let's start off here.
Tito is my nickname. My real name is Toriano, but my father tells me he named me after a boxer, a great boxer by the name of Tito.
Okay, so Toriano. He said, Tito is my nickname, but he said, my real name's Toriano. And he says, my father told me that he named me after a great boxer. Okay? So, and I don't know this guy, the guy's saying, but that's what I'm saying is that, so Tito's named after a fighter. And that's what I'm showing you is that, so early in Joseph Jackson's children, when he's having his children, and this is a male child, right? And so Joseph wasn't naming his children like Joseph Jackson or Jr. You know, he didn't do that. Joe didn't do that. He wasn't putting his name on his kids. It's not there. But what is important to him? Boxing. And he names one of his kids Toriano, an obscure kind of name with the nickname of a Tito, that this was some great boxer, because this is the boxing thing. And what I'm showing you, that this is very important to Joseph Jackson. This proves right here that boxing is very important to Joe. And he wanted to honor the boxing tradition and stuff because he named one of his first children, one of his first male children, he names them after a boxer. Okay? So now this is Berry Gordy. This is, if anybody wants to watch this is a Berry Gordy, it's his audio book. It's his memoir called To Be Loved. You can go listen to this. This is on YouTube. You know, you can listen to his whole book, and it's him narrating the thing too. It's really cool. So in this, I listened to this not too long ago, and it's one of those things that's like there's all kinds of information in there, but he's got the good dates. And this is one of the things is like I can only be so specific and tell you so much. He's really got the good information. It's one of the things. He's still alive. He could tell us like what happened if my story needs to break before these people pass away, so we can get the detailed information and the detailed understanding of precise events that occurred. But all these people, if we lose them, we don't get those detailed, precise analysis of the events that all occurred, you know. So I want Berry Gordy, you know. We got to get these people before they die. Got to get my story told, you know. So Berry Gordy, Diana Ross, Smokey Robinson, like I'm saying, those people are so important. They're all still alive. And if my story doesn't get exposed before any of them pass away, we all lose so much in the process of telling the truth of Michael Jackson's true story being known. So Berry Gordy here, he's talking about music and boxing and stuff like that. There's a lot, but here, let me just play a little piece for you here.
There it was again, music versus boxing. This time, it was visual. I stared at those posters for some time, realizing the fighters could fight once and maybe not fight again for 3 or 4 weeks, or months, or never. The bands were doing it every night, city after city, and not getting hurt. The fighters were about 23 and looked 50. The band leaders were about 50 and looked 23. I had my answer. The war that had been raging inside me, music versus boxing, was finally over.
See, the war that had been raging in me, music versus boxing. Okay, so that's what I'm saying is like, now this is why I'm saying how important. Okay, so Joseph Jackson names one of his first male children after a boxer. Okay, Joe was trying to be a boxer, and if this is what I'm saying is Joe Jackson and Berry Gordy are the same age. When you look it up, you find out that, you know, within a year of each other, they're born within a year of each other, and they're fighting in the Golden Gloves at the same time. Then after that, they're both trying to pursue interest in music and stuff, and there's a lot there. A lot of people don't know that Joseph Jackson actually had pursued music. See, now here's the tricky thing too of what I'm going to show you here compared to the true story. The true story is Joseph Jackson was pursuing music in the early 50s with his band, the Falcons. That's where he first started, okay? So that's the stuff early in the 50s. Then he went to work at the steel mill, okay? So then at that time when he's working at the steel mill, he's not trying to be a musician. Now, he's hanging out with musicians and playing with people and he's doing stuff like that, but he doesn't really have a band. He's not really, like, and he's getting more of these kids, right? So it looks like Joe Jackson's music career is faded. You know, that's into time. That's the way it goes, right? But just look at the reality of where Joseph Jackson is at in time when we're leading up until Michael being born, which I say when he's given to that house, because that's what changes everything. Because it's not that Michael's born, that's not what changes things. What changes things is that Michael's given to Joseph Jackson from his old friend Berry Gordy. Right at the time that Berry Gordy's developing Motown. This is what now, that's why you see when that kid's born, now you'll see how Joseph Jackson's life changes. And it's because Michael was given to him. Now, like I said, I don't know that Joseph wouldn't know like Smokey Robinson, you know, and Diana Ross, and who even knows like actually if they ever encountered each other, exactly how that worked, I don't know. But it's Berry Gordy is the guy that knows him. He got him from Berry Gordy. He knows Berry Gordy's a success already in the music. He's a songwriter. He's a success. But he's actually starting a record company and he needs to get rid of this kid. Whatever happened, the true story, that's what I'm saying. I can only give you so much of my interpretation of what the events occurred. Imagine getting Berry Gordy's story. Imagine what he would be able to tell you. He'd be like, yeah, I thought, oh, let's give the kid to this guy Joe because he's got a big family with all the kids, and that's how all of them were raised. They were all raised basically in big families with lots of kids, usually lots of stuff like the stuff that were similar living arrangements in the Jackson's house compared to like what Smokey and Diana Ross, what you find out with a lot of these people, they've got a lot of similar same family environments occurring. So for Michael to go into that house where the people say, oh, there's such a small house and all this stuff, it's like, it's not that big of a deal. It really wasn't. And actually, I think it was a beneficial thing to making this occur. So now, we're going to skip over to the Jacksons and American Dream. So this right here, this is Joe at the steel mill. Okay, so now what I want to show you here is, in the movie, they make a mistake. Okay, so now it's one of those things too. It's like, how many oddities and mistakes have to occur about the Michael Jackson being born before people start to realize that, hey, there's something weird going on there. And when you realize, in relation to the story that I'm telling, you realize, oh, well, now I'm answering how all of these things are occurring, because you'll see that it's occurring in the process of what I'm telling you, the development, how it develops. It's my explanation of it. So right here in the movie, they start off here and they say Gary, Indiana in 1959. But so we know the timing is wrong because Michael's born in August 29th of 1958. Okay, so on the timing of the thing in the movie, Michael hasn't actually been born in the way that the show is playing, but they've got it at 1959. I think some of what that is because they're messing with the music thing of Joe with the Falcons. I think some of that played out in a weird way and they didn't know how to cover it up because the actual dates and timing of it wasn't right. So they kind of did this like weird little stuff of what they did. And that's one of the things about telling the story about what I'm telling is the dates and the stuff are tricky because there's a lot of confusion is what you find out. And then there's like misinformation that they're putting out there too and stuff like that because they're trying to make a cover up. It's like all this stuff goes on. So just real quick, Gary, Indiana. Okay, I just wanted you to so you know that's the steel mill. Okay, so Gary, Indiana, 1959. I'm gonna skip over right here. So this is right there. This is where Joe's gonna get fired or laid off.
Okay. Sorry, Joe. Go on, take us down to administration.
I'm being laid off. Is that what you're telling me?
Look, I don't got no answers for you. What do you want me to do?
Okay, so they're saying here at the steel mill, they're saying that they're setting it up for Joseph to start the band. They're setting it up in the movie for the band to start to be developed, okay? But they've already started it off wrong, and this is the Jacksons' and American Dream, okay? This is the official stuff. How come I'm the one here saying, why are these dates wrong here? Why are these dates wrong revolving around the exact time of the events that are occurring about what I'm saying? Okay, and you'll see how it's developing. Why is this developing exactly at this time in history? And you'll see that it doesn't work the way they're saying it. My story works much better. Okay, so there's Joseph. He's just been laid off at the steel mill.
You catch me touching this?
No, of course not. You're not gonna sell it. It's your music.
Who's gonna sell it? Gonna round up the fellas. Live on Sex. A couple other guys. Gonna call ourselves Falcons. See if we can get some gigs. Gonna make me some money.
Okay? See, they're saying that the development of this process of like how Joseph starts out the development of building the band is they're saying because he got laid off at the steel mill, and they're saying because he gets laid off at the steel mill, he picks up his guitar because, like I said, he does have an old history in the music business. But like I said, now look at where we are in time. He's got all these children, and you're going to tell me when he gets laid off at the steel mill, he doesn't just go get another job? Because usually when you get laid off, like I'm assuming like a steel mill, you're a union worker. What happens is those are temporary layoffs. It's not like he's not getting fired, okay? And usually I think when you're union like that, if you get laid off, you can go draw unemployment. Okay, during those temporary layoffs, you're allowed to draw unemployment benefits. Okay, so it's not like the worst thing in the world for these union workers to take temporary layoffs and stuff, right? Then they can go find other work or find side jobs and hustles and figure it out and stuff, right? So that's what I'm saying is like when he got laid off here, it's not like his career's over. Okay, he didn't get like fired and that's it. You're never gonna work in the steel industry again. It's like you're through, right? That's not what the world we're talking about. The reality is now Now, and they're saying here, now look at the reality. They're saying here that the layoff occurred in 59. It just said 59 there, right? Did it say the month? No, I think it just said, yeah, it said Gary, Indiana, 1959. So now let's take it into the context of the reality. Let's say he did get laid off in 1959. Okay, so my story would say that he gets Michael in the house in late 58, and then he starts to develop in his head. What I say it develops in his head is he starts to get grandiose plans in his head, and he starts to say, I'm going to make a band for my... See, because this is the thing, and this is a key to the story, how it develops too. Michael, when he gets Michael in the house, Michael doesn't have the talent, and he's not trying to build a band with his kids. That's not what he's doing. So when he gets Michael in the house, now he's got a connection back to Berry Gordy. What in real life happens? In real life happens after that, 1959. Okay, like they said, that's probably right. When he actually stops working at the steel mills in 1959, it's one of those things where you're trying to figure out exactly, well, why are they misinforming us on the dates of how this is occurring? Like, how does that occur that way? Because one of the things, I think what it is, they're wanting to show you in the movie that Joseph's interest in the music is occurring even before Michael's born. That's what they're showing you here. But that's not true. Michael's born before this event would occur because they're saying he got laid off in 1959. So Michael's born, which would line up with the timing of what I'm saying. Then Michael he doesn't know Michael's got talent. He's not training his kids to be stars. That's not what's happening. But my story would say that he just got Michael from Berry Gordy. He's got a connection back to Berry Gordy. This is Joe Jackson, the mean guy. Who's he going to trust? Himself. And the reality is he stops working at the steel mill at that time, and he starts to reform his band, the Falcons, to try and research interest in a music career because he's got a connection to Berry Gordy, right? But that doesn't work because he's older. It doesn't work, okay? Berry Gordy's not just handing out record deals and shit, right? And they're not saying, I'm going to rat you out. He's not trying to blow this friendship. He's trying to figure out, how do I work this, right? So then what I say that happened is, like in the movie, like how he said right here, he says, the kids haven't been playing my guitar, right? And it's just, of course not. But what they say later is that Tito's secretly playing the guitar. But think about that small house. Katherine's around all the time, basically. And to play guitar, that's a musical instrument. You have to actually learn, like, what a chord is. I'm sure he wouldn't have had a book. You know, maybe somebody around, he could have been playing a friend's guitar or something like that. But then he would have played his friend's guitar. He wouldn't have needed to come home and play his dad's guitar. Like, who would have actually taught him how to hold a chord? Like, what a note, how to do that. His dad taught him. So how did Tito actually start to learn to play guitar is that at this time you got Joseph. In 1959, he says he's going to do the band, but let's look in history. He doesn't become a big star. But so think about what happens. After a couple of years, he's trying to do it. It's not working, and Berry Gordy has turned him down. So he's trying to figure it out. So what would he do in the real life? That's the moment in real world history where he would start to train his own children. Let me train my kids. See? Because at that time, Michael's still young, where Michael's not singing, and they still don't know what they've got. And so at first, Joseph's decision is to train Tito on the guitar. And they cover it up by the story of what they do in the movie, though the kids secretly playing the guitar. See how they're covering up all the stuff of the proper formation of the events occurring, in which the way I'm fucking narrating these events. Okay, so Joseph then is turned down by Berry Gordy, but he doesn't want to blow the connection. He's got the kid. He's still connected to Berry Gordy. Berry Gordy's just starting to really get big at this time, so he's really not wanting to blow the deal. So what he does, he starts to train Tito, which that aligns with the proper formation of how the band actually develops, is that Tito's playing the guitar, and Tito has the first interest of developing the band with like Jermaine and stuff, and it's first starts to develop with them before Michael can sing, because like I said, Joe doesn't know what he's got, and he doesn't trust his kids. They're not like the singers, they're not the talent, so he's training Tito first to be a guitar player, because that's what he knows. He's teaching him this is what I can do, let me show you what I know. That's what he would do. That's exactly how it happened. But then Michael, and this is the thing too, it's like, so as soon as Michael shows like real talent, then Joseph really gets the idea, okay, let's put a band together. Now let me work it. He puts the band together and he builds it because he does know music. He knows how to do it. Once he saw it, he knew what to do. And he said, but that's why, think about the reality. This is why he trusts that kid, because they say at that time he goes out and buys all the instruments, right? And he goes out on the road. But with this guy, this Joseph Jackson guy, he's been working all his life in the steel mill. But and that's the other thing. Did he ever go back to go back to work at the steel mill after this? He was laid off. In the real world, at some point, he would have went back, but I don't know. That's one of those things that I need to see documented. It's like, okay, I want to know, after this event occurred, did Joseph ever go back and work at the steel mill? This is one of those things I don't know actually how that's dated in history. But if he never went back, that sure lines back up with my story, that he's getting some kind of benefits from Berry Gordy, some kind of financial benefits for watching the kid, which is helping him do these other things. So then, that's where when Michael Jackson shows the talent at 5 years old, and he says that's why he trusts the kid. Why does he trust that kid? Never trusted any of the other kids. He wasn't taking the other kids out on the road, like he could have been doing gigs on the weekends. Like that's what they could have been doing. He could have been working at the steel mill, could have been doing gigs on the weekends, but that's not how it really happened. What happens is, like I said, he was the one that tried to make it. It didn't make it for him, so he starts to train Tito. They start to build it. They're not sure exactly what they're doing. They're starting to build a band, through musicians and dancing. He's doing what he knows. But then when Michael can dance, when Michael can sing, he instantly trusts that kid because that's the kid connected back to Berry Gordy. So Berry Gordy's going to have to he's going to have to take that kid much more serious. He's not going to be able to just push that kid away so easily, right? That's what Joe's thinking. That's why then, that's how the development of the Jackson 5 all develops. That's how it all happens, actually, the real world of how the whole story. So like I said, this is the Jackson 5. So I'm playing this, I'm skipping over through parts, but I'm playing it in proper order in the movie and stuff. So you just saw Joseph got fired from the steel mill. They said it was 1959. They said he was going to pick up his guitar. And then after that, this happens.
Hey, Katie. You're not pregnant again, are you?
Katherine.
Oh, I'm just so embarrassed. How am I ever going to tell my mother?
Okay, so now they've got this occurring. Like I said, Michael, in 1959, Michael's already been born. So they've got this dated wrong in the movie. This in the movie is occurring after the stuff I just showed you. The stuff, and so this is occurring after that. So they've got it wrong in the movie. And it's like, who was able to spot that and expose it? Me, because I'm doing the investigation. And why does it occur exactly around the Michael kid? Now, here's the other thing. And like how she said, how am I going to explain that to my mama? They're setting it up in the movie there because they're wanting you to think that Katherine listens to her mother because this is what's coming next.
Oh, how about Ronald?
Oh, Mama, no, not Ronald.
Donald?
Mama, no, I don't want Donald.
Well, how about Mike?
That's better. Michael. Look at me. Michael Joe Jackson.
Okay. Now, so right here, there's actually a lot. So now, we just heard Tito say that his name came from his dad chose his name that had come from a famous boxer that he had admired, right? That's where Tito's name had come from. So that tells you that Joseph, when choosing the names of his children, that Joseph had very much direct personal interest in naming the children, and he was not naming the children after himself. He was more interested in naming, bringing the tradition back to some old fighter like that, connecting the heritage that way. Like, that's the reality of what happened, and I just documented that to show you. Joseph was not naming his first children's Joe. It wasn't in there. And Joseph personally was naming his children, and they were obscure names to boxers. That's how the name of the Tito originally was formed, okay? So now in the movie, what they're telling you is that this kid, the kid that I'm telling you, the odd kid, they're telling you that this kid in the movie, that they're telling you that at the time of the birth of the kid, that Katherine doesn't even have a clue to what the name of the child's going to be. They're telling you that her and Joseph have not discussed the name of their child to be born that's coming up, that they don't even know the name of this child. That's what they're telling you. And now, is that a reasonable thing that we can believe? It's absolutely not reasonable whatsoever that Joe Jackson and Katherine Jackson would not have had conversations about the name of their upcoming child. Okay, so And this is the true story. This is what Katherine actually says in her book. I haven't read her book, but I've heard it, that it comes from her book, that she says that her mother was the one that named Michael. That's supposed to be the official story, okay? That's why I'm saying that this is a big deal, that's how they're saying it occurred. So now, when Michael's born, the odd kid, the kid that I'm saying was given to them, so now if the kid was given to them, wouldn't that mean that the name, now Joseph and Katherine would never have had the discussion of what the name of the child was, right? So when they had to talk about, well, how'd you come up with the name of the kid? Maybe it's just something like that. Well, they never had the discussion of what the name of the kid was because they were going to be given this kid. And that I think that Diana Ross named the kid Michael. You know, like Michael the Archangel. I think it has a relation to that. Or it could be for like Michelangelo. Some connections to that. But it's whatever. It has the name with Michael. I think it comes from Diana Ross. I think that she named him Michael. So then that's why I think the name... Now, there's discussions of whether Michael's middle name is Joe or Joseph. Now, Smokey Robinson, his name is really William, okay? So it's William Smokey. Smokey's not really his name, okay? Smokey's not his name at all, Smokey Robinson. That's not his name. It's his nickname. But it stuck so hard that it became official. But actually, before he was like 12 or 13, it wasn't Smokey Robinson. It was Smokey Joe Robinson. Smokey Joe. That's the actual name. It's actually Smokey Joe. That's the actual name of what it actually is. But then he dropped off the Joe and became officially Smokey. But the name, the origins of the name through the Westerns and stuff, it's actually Smokey Joe. And that's what he was actually called, Smokey Joe. So there is a direct connection to the name Joe through Smokey, you know, who's the father. So, but I'm not going to get too deep into that. But I'm just saying that there is also another thing there, that it's odd that that the kid does have a name that is connected to the father too, okay, the real father. But the reality is, they're saying Joseph has no process of it in naming the kid. So then they just throw the middle name in there. Okay, now, Joseph is the kind of guy, it looks like the kind that he would be like, I want to name my kid. My kid's name is important to me. I'm going to have something in the process of the name of my child, right? Look at what he did with Tito. It's obviously something important, and it was directly to boxing and stuff, directly with Berry Gordy and music and boxing, the true nature of what really drove these people. So then, like I said, after Joe had to give up all the boxing and the music and everything, and he had all the children and stuff, when he had that opportunity to came back into his life to have, take this kid from Berry Gordy, the guy that he knows from boxing and music. That's who gave him. And Berry Gordy's building a career. And so then right after that, what does Joe do? Starts to be a musician. Exactly. Right? Just like what I'm saying, falls in perfect alignment. What happens exactly when this child, okay, they're saying the story that Joe doesn't name the child, that they're saying that's the true story. Can that be possible? It can't be possible. It's obviously some kind of weird cover-up. And they named the kid Joe, the middle name, because, like I said, the name Michael comes from Diana. They don't name him, so they blame it on the mother. She comes up with the name. They come up with this stupid story here. Then they say, well, let's just put the Joe in there. They come up with some weird thing. So it's either that the Joe comes from Smokey, or the Joe was placed there as a cover-up by them because they wanted to put Joseph's name because they're covering it up. That's how they put Michael Joe Jackson. That's how we cover it up, you know. So that's what they did, right? It all aligns up exactly, perfectly with the stuff of what I'm saying. The dates align perfectly. The story every time. There's not like there's a misstep. It always lines up perfectly with the story of what I'm saying. When you look at the story of what they're saying, you'll see that my story's not the one with the flaws and the holes in it. It's their story. Look it's not my story that breaks down. It's not my dates. It's not my telling of the story. It's theirs. I broke their story down. They're the one with the problem, not me. And it's not just one simple problem on the dates. It's the actual birth of the kid, the name. It's the actual development of how the band developments. It's all of it. It's all wrong. All of it. And doesn't it neatly fit exactly that my explanation of the story exactly explains how I'm explaining why it developed that way, why they're telling you that way. I'm not only telling you the truth, I'm showing you how it developed, that it can't have it developed in the way of what they're saying, because the real nature of the events that were occurring are being explained by me. My dates line up perfectly. My telling of the true story explains everything and explains why Michael is this God's gift of a talent, because his real parents are Diana Ross and Smokey Robinson. And why Michael, his whole life, said, don't forget about the children. Over and over all his life, he's always constantly saying, remember the children, because he's got the one thing in his life that nobody knows, the biggest secret that destroyed him, that he was abandoned as a baby. It was the whole issue with him the whole time. Why does he end up as Peter Pan in Neverland Ranch? All this stuff. Why does he end up in these weird relationships with women? He's not having real relationship. How does that all develop? Perfectly fits into the context of the story of what I'm saying, and it even goes further because I'm actually naming the songs. I'm explaining that Diana Ross is Billie Jean. I've explained that is actually the name. He explained what happened. The Billie Jean actually is the explaining of Diana Ross informing Michael Jackson that she was his real mother when Michael Jackson was 10 years old and living at her house after the Jacksons had signed to Motown and moved to Los Angeles and were living with Diana Ross, coincidentally. That's what the song Billie Jean's about. It's not one little thing. It's all of it. That's why Diana Ross ends up in Michael Jackson's will. That's how all of this stuff occurs. I constantly label the proper dates aligning up with the proper events that are occurring in everything with the details of my story. Michael Jackson was abandoned, and here's the other thing, telling all this stuff, you go back into, I've got Diana Ross on video saying that at 14 years old that she was in love with Smokey Robinson and she was sleeping in his house at the time that Michael Jackson is conceived. How did I get all this proof? How do I got all this information? Because the story's real and they couldn't hide the truth. You could not bury that kind of truth because it was real. My story's real. I've got it all documented, backed up with the hardest core evidence and dates and real evidence of confessions. But for some reason, people just want to not paying attention to what I'm saying, and they think that they're real Michael Jackson fans, that they think that they're the ones helping, that they're allowing Michael Jackson. They think Michael Jackson can rest in peace with the world that he died in without the story of what I'm telling being known? No. Michael Jackson will never rest in peace until the truth is known. And who's the person telling this truth? An American scheme.